Open the Render Setup dialog and the frame buffer. Click on the Region Render button and draw around the sofa area. Let's do a quick test render. We are going to increase render output in order to see more details. The following step is to apply the same techniques to the other sofas and the carpet. The final result should look similar to this finished scene. There are separate scenes showcasing the various stages of this process. Let's do another quick test render to see what the overall scene looks like. Make sure the region button is deselected. Before we start tweaking the lights, let's bring in the photo reference by first clicking on the Rendering tab and choosing the View Image File option. We'll be using this photo as guide to get towards the final result. As you can see in the photo reference, there's a bit of a blue tinge around the ceiling, which is probably coming from the environment light. So the next step is to emulate this effect by creating a V-Ray plane light. Let's start by having all 4 viewports in display and changing the top viewport display to wireframe. Under V-Ray lights, click on the V-Ray light button and drag to create a plane light in the top viewport. Let's create the light by clicking and dragging it along the balcony. Enable the Rotate tool and angle the snap toggle. Rotate the V-Ray light to about 90 degrees. Rotate the light again to about 145 degrees so the arrow is facing towards the window. Adjust the position of the light a bit more to fit the floor area. Next we're going to change the light color to match closely to the color of the photo reference. Open the Modify panel and click on the light color swatch. In the Color Selector dialog, click on the color picker and pick the blue areas of the photo. Also, let's name this light as _window. As mentioned earlier, it's good practice to name the lights according to their functionality. Let's adjust the length and width of the light to fit the windows. Next, expand the light options rollout and make the light invisible to the camera by checking the invisible function. Also, uncheck the Effect Reflection function. This will make the plane light invisible of reflections of all objects in the scene. Let's test render the results. The scene is coming together, but the blue tones are not very prominent yet. Let's change the color of the plane light to a darker tone of blue. Increase the multiplier value to about 130 and do another test render. The blue tones are now more prominent. However, the gamma is making the overall scene a bit washed out. To rectify this, simply open the Render Setup dialog. In the V-Ray tab, under Color Mapping Rollout, choose the Color Mapping Only mode. Let's do another test render. As you can see, the overall render now has a lot more depth and looks more appealing. The next step is to add a background image outside the glass. There's currently a plane outside without texture applied. That plane was created by enabling the Splines button, click in line, the snap tool, and drawing a line. Next, open the Modify panel, enable the spline selection, select the spline in the viewport, and increase the outline value to about 10 mm. The following step was to add the extrude modifier on top. This plane will be used to emulate the building outside. First, we're going to open the material editor and condense some of the material slots. Next, create a new material slot. To name it, let's copy the name of the object and paste it by right-clicking. Load up the V-Ray material and choose the bitmap texture called Building High Rise 0328 _1 _seamless _m.jpg. Again, this texture came from CG Texture's website. Assign this material to the selected plane. Next, we're going to add self-illumination to the building. Copy the diffuse texture and paste the instance to the self-illumination toggle. Increase the multiplier to about 2.0. Let's do another test render to see the results. The image outside makes the overall render more interesting to look at. The next step is to apply a glass material to the balcony area. Select a new material slot and name it Balcony Glass. Create a glass material similar to the one previously applied. In fact, we can simply copy and paste from the previous glass material created. In the viewport, find the balcony area and select it. Go to the Group tool and open the balcony group. Select the side plane and assign the glass material to it. Repeat this action to all the glass areas of the balcony. Next, we're going to apply a metal material to the balcony handrail. Select the handrail and a new material slot. Copy, paste and rename the new material slot. Assign this material to the handrail. As previously done, we're going to copy a metal material from the old material and paste it into this new one. Tweak some of its reflection and glossiness settings. Also, make this metal surface slightly different by changing the anisotropy value to about -0.5. As you can see, the reflection and highlight direction has changed as a result. This action causes the reflection to be more faint as a result. So if you wish to have more reflections, simply increase the reflectivity and the reflect glossiness values. And we can change the fall-off color slightly. The next material we're going to work on is the kitchen worktop. First, let's select all the kitchen worktop pieces and enable the 2D zoom mode by right-clicking on the top left viewport. Zoom in with your mouse and select this last piece of the worktop. Isolate the selection. Enable the 2D pan zoom mode and zoom in. Open the group and deselect the elements that are not part of the worktop. Exit the isolation mode and isolate it again. Let's open the material editor and select a new material slot. Let's rename this new material as Marble Stand. The following step is to load up the V-Ray material as before and choose the bitmap named marble base 0173 underscore 2 seamless underscore XL underscore green. This texture came from cgtextures.com. Enable the show shaded material in viewport and assign it to one of the worktop pieces. Open the modify panel. As you can see, the UVW modifier has already been applied, using some of the techniques highlighted earlier. Again, we are going to use the follow procedural map using the same steps covered earlier. To make the worktop reflective, we are going to uncheck the Fresnel and unlock the highlight glossiness function. The following step is to increase the reflectivity to about 13.0. Decrease the highlight glossiness value to about 0.75. Enable the background button to check the reflectivity on the preview thumbnail. In the Modify panel, there's already a chamfer modifier applied to this object. It was originally applied by going on the modifier list and choosing chamfer from the list. In the real world, most objects are 100% sharp. The chamfer modifier is often applied to bevel the sharp edges of objects and making it more realistic. These chamfered edges will also be useful to pick edge highlights. As you can see, the chamfer was applied before the UVW modifier. Let's exit the isolation and the 2D zoom mode. Next, we're going to start adding plain lights under the penthouse kitchen cupboards. These lights should wash down the back walls. As previously done, we're going to V-Ray lights and create a V-Ray light in top viewport. Use some of the techniques covered earlier to move the light closer to the kitchen wall and under the cupboards. Open the Modify panel and adjust the light dimensions. Exit the isolation mode and change the rotation mode to local. This will make it easier to rotate the light in a specific direction. Rotate the V-Ray plane light so the arrow is angled against the kitchen wall. This will help emulate the light washing down the wall. Also, let's rename this light as _kitchen wash. Again, naming lights according to their functionalities will make it easier to merge and edit lights at a later stage. Let's do another test render to check the lights. As you can see, the light washing down the wall is looking nice, but the light object shown in black color is currently visible to the camera. Open the Modify panel and turn off the Effect Reflections and turn on the Invisible options. We can copy instance the lights along the cupboards by holding down the Shift key and moving the object. Instance lights whenever possible, as it reduces the render times drastically. We can also use the Scale toolbar to reduce the size of instance lights to fit areas without affecting the other instance lights. The next step is to create the curtain material. Name the new material as curtain and load up the V-Ray material as previously done. Use the previous steps to choose the bitmap named white_diffuse2.jpg. Now that the texture is loaded, let's set the U and V tile to 8.0. Again, we're going to use a fall-off procedural map and the color correction to emulate the real surface. To emulate the transparency of the curtain, we're going to concentrate mainly on the refraction group parameters. First, let's apply the follow-up procedural map to the refraction toggle. As previously mentioned, in the refraction parameters, black makes surfaces completely opaque and the white does the opposite. Let's make the black color slightly brighter by clicking on its color swatch and setting it to 81.0 and the white color to about 235, so it's not 100% transparent. As you can see, from the material slot thumbnail, the material has become slightly translucent. Also, let's reduce the index of refraction to about 1.2. Finally, let's reduce the glossiness value to about 0.8. This will diffuse the appearance of objects behind the surface. Assign this material to the curtains and do another test render to check the material. As you can see, the curtain material is looking more realistic now as the light casts shadows through it. The following step is to begin adding artificial lights under the ceiling light fixtures. Under V-Ray lights, click on the V-Ray IES button, followed by clicking and dragging in the front viewport to create its direction. Next, open the Modify panel and then check the targeted function. This will make it easier to move the lights if necessary. Change the selection type to Lights and move the light inside the penthouse close to the rug. Click on the IES file toggle to load up the file. Choose this IES file. Let's do another test render to check the light intensity. First, we're going to make the IES light a bit warmer by changing its color to yellowish. Also, increase the intensity value to about 5172,000. Next, copy this light as an instance and place them under every ceiling light in the viewport. Let's do another test render to check the light intensity. Sometimes the IES light needs to be moved very close to the wall in order to see its pattern. The overall lighting is now looking okay. Let's bring up the photo reference to compare it against.